Yes.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam Prabhujis and Matajis. Today we will go through some of the stories from the 6th canto, right? Vritrasura story is what we discussed last time, Vritrasura and Indra Devendra conversation. Today we will talk the little further on Chitraketu story. Krishna will start with prayers. Prayers to Shachigama. Kirtana, first one. Sorry. Krishna, can you see the screen, Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Pavanam pavane gopi Hare Namaiva Akrambastamba Paryantam Sarvam Mayamayam Jagat Satyam Satyam Punashatyam Hare Namaiva Kevalam Saguru Sapita Jati Samata Bandhavo Visaha Sikshaye Chet Sada Smatum Hare Namaiva Kevalam Vishwasena hi Vishwasa Sadarubho Bhavishyati Kitaniya Mato Banya Hare Namaiva Kevalam Hare Sada Vasetatra Yatra Bhagavata Jana Gayanti Bhakti Bhavena Hare Namaiva Kevalam Aho Dukkham Mahadukham Dukkha Dukkhantaram Yataha Achakam Vismritam Ratna Hare Namaiva Kevalam Diyatam Diyatam Karno Niyatam Niyatam Vachaha Diyatam Diyatam Nityam Hare Namaiva Kevalam Trinikritya Jagat Sarvam Rajate Sakalopari Chitanandamayam Shodham Hare Namaiva Kevalam Hare Namaiva Kevalam Hare Namaiva Kevalam Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna
Hare Krishna. Shall we read through the translations? Prabhuji?
Number 1, more sweet than all other sweet things, more auspicious than all other auspicious things, the greatest purifier of all purifying things, the holy name of Sri Hari alone is everything.
Just a second one. The entire universe, from exalted Brahma down to the lowly clump of grass, is a product of the illusory energy of Supreme Lord. The only thing that is reality. Again, I say reality. The holy name of Sri Hari alone is everything.
Number 3, that person is a true preceptor or a true father, a true mother, and a true friend, also only if they teach one to always remember. The holy name of Sri Hari alone is everything.
There is no certainty when the last breath will come and put an abrupt halt to all one's material plans. Therefore, it's wise to always practice chanting from very childhood. The holy name of Sri Hari alone is everything.
Number 5, Lord Hari eternally dwells in that place where truly exalted, spiritually advanced souls sing in the mood of pure devotion. The holy name of Sri Hari alone is everything.
Oh, what a sorrow, what a sorrow. More painful than any other misery in this world, mistaking it as a mere piece of grass. The people have forgotten this jewel. The holy name of Sri Hari alone is everything.
It should be heard again and again with one's ears. It should be uttered over and over with one's voice. It should be perpetually sung and sung anew. The holy name of Sri Hari alone is everything.
It makes the entire universe seem insignificant as a blade of grass. It reigns supreme over all in a splendorous manner. It is full of eternally conscious divine ecstasy. It is supremely pure. The holy name of Sri Hari alone is everything. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. The small kirtan of the importance of Sri Hari, the name of Sri Hari, chanting of Sri Hari, how important it is for every Vaishnava compared to any of the materialistic things that we get ourselves entangled in, is what is the lesson from this kirtan of Prabhuji Mataji's. With this, let's go into our prayers and start the class. Mangalacharan prayers. ज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरोन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपा कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वापदान्तिकम्। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरो वैष्णवांश्च Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Pada Sahagana Shri Vishaka Vitansha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanostute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gauravakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudhirayat Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavate Uttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naistiki Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nanda Gopa Kumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namine Gauratvishe Namaha Namah Pankajanaಭಾಯ Namah Pankajamalini Namah Pankajanetraya Namaste Pankajangre Namo Brahmanyaya Devaya Go Brahmanaya Hitaya Cha Jagat Hitaya Krishnaya Govindaya Namo Namaha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gauravakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna. Please quickly do sisters prayers. Cheto darpanamajjanam bhava mahadhavagni nirvapanam Shreyah kairava chandrika vitaranam vidya vadujeevanam Anandam buddhivardhanam pratipadam purnamrita swadanam Sarvatma snapanam param vichayate Sri Krishna Sankirtanam Namakari bahuda nija sarva shakti Tatrarpita niyamita smaranena kala Etadrishi tava kripa bhagavan mamapi Duttaivam idrisham ijajaniraga Trinadapi sunichena tarorapi sahishtuna Amanina manadena kirtaniya sada hari
न धनं न जनं न सुन्दरीं कवितां वा जगदीश कामये मम जन्मनि जन्मनीश्वरे भवतद्भक्तिरहैतुकी त्वयि ऐनन्दतनुज किङ्करं पतितां मां विषमे भवाम्बुधौ कृपया तव पादपङ्कजस्थितधूलिसदृशं विचिन्तय नयनं गलदश्रुधारया वदनं गद्गदरुधाय गिरा पुलकैर्निचितं वपुः कदा तव नाम गृहणे भविष्यति युगायितं निमिषेण चक्षुषा प्रवृशायितं शून्यायितं जगत् सर्वं गोविन्द विरहे आश्लिष्य वा पादपं विनास्तु माम् आदर्शनान् मद्महतं करोतु वा यथा तथा वा विधतातुलं पटो मत्प्राणनाथस्तु सेवनापरा हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे
करोति वाचनं मृत्युपातमाह मुद्दे परमानंद हरे कृष्ण हरे कृष्ण. How is everybody? Prabhuji and Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Lilananda Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Prabhu Dandavad.
Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Prabhu Dandavad.
Hare Krishna Anandram Prabhu. Hare Krishna Prabhu. So last time in my class we discussed about Vritrasura Charita. So those of you who remember Vritrasura, right? So you remember Vritrasura Kada, right? So what happens in Vritrasura Kada? Does anybody wants to very briefly tell about Vritrasura? Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Anybody wants to talk about Vritrasura? So, Prabhuji Sunmatas, you can hear me, right?
Yeah, we can hear.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay. Okay. So we talked about Vritrasura, the demon who threatens the Devatas, right? And Vritrasura, and then Devendra goes to Dadichi and gets the Vajrayudha to kill Vritrasura, and all that story we discussed. What we discussed last time is the divine nature of Vritrasura, the divine nature of an Asura. So Devendra himself gets amazed to see how divine Vritrasura is, and Vritrasura is just waiting for Devendra to kill him so that he can go back to the Godhead. So why then Parikshit Maharaj in the next chapter he asks Sukadeva Goswami, how come an Asura be so divine in nature? So that's where the next story starts. Screen not getting shared. No, I think it's my screen only. I'm not giving the proper share. 1 second. Stop share. Share screen. Okay. So we saw this Vritrasura being killed by Devendra, and then in 14th chapter, then the 13th chapter talks about in how Indra is affected by the sinful reaction, and what Indra does is Aswamedha Yaga and all that stuff we talked about. In the 14th chapter, so in the beginning of 14th chapter, Parikshit Maharaj asks Sukadeva Goswami, how come a demon be so clear in consciousness, so clear in God consciousness? This is where Sukadeva Goswami explains the past story of Chitraketu Maharaj. Chitraketu. So Chitraketu is, we're going to go briefly on these chapters, Prabhuji's and Mataji's, 14, 15, 16, 17, and then we talk more on the 19th chapter. So Chitraketu Maharaj is a king who's ruling, who's got, he's a happy man, he's a devotee. Everybody in the kingdom are happy, excepting that the king does not have a son. So because the king does not have a son, he keeps on marrying one more person, thinking that one of his queens will bless him with a son. But he ends up marrying 1 crore queens, but none of them will give him a son. Then the king gets to start to become very sad that become very sad that he's not having a son. As the king is becoming sad, the whole kingdom is sad basically, because when the king is sad, the entire queens are sad, and the kingdom, everybody in the kingdom are sad. At that point of time, what happens is he gets what do you call it? Who is this person? Angira Muni comes to his kingdom to inquire him, and then Angira Rishi comes and he tells him, like, asks him what's the reason for his sadness. The king tells him, like, I don't have a son, and if I don't have a son, how will I be delivered from Pitraloka? How will my ancestors be delivered? So I need a son to deliver me after me leaving the body, and I need a son so that he can even deliver my ancestors. Then Angira Rishi sees that Chitraketu does not have a son in his destiny, but because he was pleased with the king's service to the great sage, the great sage decides to bless him with a son. And so great sage tells him, you have to perform this particular Yajna Yaga. When you do this Yajna Yaga, you'll be blessed with a son. And then Chitraketu Maharaj does perform in Yajna Yaga, and in the process of this, then the Yajna Purusha comes with the payasam, or the sweet the holy name, this thing, similar to what we see in Ramacharita, right? In Dasrath Maharaj performs the Putra Kameshti Yagam, similar to that, on the guidance of Angira Rishi. Chitraketu Maharaj also performs this, and he gets that payasam, and he gives it. He could have given it to any one of his queens, but he gives it to the best queen, and the first queen. That queen is Kritadgyati. So he picks up Kritadgyati as his Jyeshta and Shrestha queen. So he gives it to Kritadgyati, and Kritadgyati, on eating the payasam, will be blessed with a male boy. So then the kingdom and the king, and there are no bounds to the happiness of the kingdom, and there are no bounds to the happiness of the king and all the queens. Everybody celebrate basically. The king is so happy that finally he has a son. But one thing that happens is the Angira Rishi tells him, this son will also be reason for his misery. Okay, the son will also be a reason for his misery. So he'll have both the blessing and misery by the son. The king, Chitraketu, looks at the statement, and he looks at it as saying, like, yes, I'm going to have a son. Probably the son will be pampered with all the queens and the kingdom, because he's being born after a lot of waiting. So maybe he's going to become less useful. He's going to become very arrogant, or he's going to become mischievous child. And okay, having a mischievous child is better than not having a son, is what King Chitraketu thinks. And he's happy because the child is born, and the whole kingdom has all the celebrations and so on and so forth. But what happens is, over a period of time, the king is focusing only on the son and the queen, the mother of the son, Kritadgyati. So what happens is, in the process, the king is neglecting all the rest of his 99,999,999 queens, basically the one less than 1 crore of the queens. They all now feel that they are not getting the due respect in the kingdom. They think even the maid servants of the queen Kritadgyati, the maid servants on the kingdom, are being respected better by the king than themselves. So all these queens collectively think on thinking, what should we do for this problem? And what they do is, they think this little boy is the cause of their misery. Hare Krishna. So the queens, being neglected by the king, thinks that little boy is the cause of misery. Do you remember another story where such a thing happened, Prabhuji and Matajis? Anybody remember? Hare Krishna, Mataji?
Dhruva Maharaj.
Dhruva Maharaj story. So tell, what happens there, Mataji?
Over there,
Danapada.
He has Suruchi and Suniti.
Yes.
Suniti,
Right? Suniti's son is Dhruva Maharaj, and Surichi's son is the king is more closer to Surichi, and then he takes care. He neglects Suniti. Right? So the similar thing is happening here, but there's a fundamental difference in the way things are happening. There, Suniti was the one neglected, but she did not find it being envious. I mean, she did not find it envious. Here, the 99 lakh queens now collectively start blaming the boy, and they poison the boy. They poison the boy and they kill the boy. See the difference between Suniti, though being neglected, she picks up Dhruva and she tells Dhruva, you should now go and pray for the Lord. Take the shelter of Lord Mahavishnu. But here the queens have decided to take control of the situation and poison the little boy and kill him. They think that little boy is the cause of misery for their lives. See, Prabhuji Mataji, so the difference between a Vaishnava thinking and a non-Vaishnava thinking. Whereas Suniti, she being a devotee. So as devotees, we should always see where you want to take control of your life. You have to take control of yourself only in the devotional service. Other than that, we should, if we take control of our lives on our own, what happens? So all these 99 lakh queens, they went and killed this little boy. Kritadyati not knowing the boy is dead, she thinks he's just oversleeping, and she tries to wake him up, and then she realizes and the boy is dead, and she starts even cursing the God. If you look at 14th chapter, like 58 to 61 slokas, where the Kritadyati is even like cursing the God. Oh, how can you do this to us? I thought you are what do you call it? You take care of people, but you have killed my son. See, problem here is people, when in distress, are not even thinking so much that they're even ready to curse God. Then what happens? As we go into further into 15th chapter, again, Narada and Angira Muni comes to Chitraketu's rescue. Chitraketu is crying so much, No, there's nobody who's even able to console him, because his the only son that born after so many years, is lost. Then Narada and Angira Muni, they give him, say again, Narada has come. Again, in Dhruva's story, Narada comes when his devotee is in distress, and and to put him into the path of devotion. And Narada comes in Dhruva's story, and he gives him the Mahamantra. In the similar way, Narada Muni comes to Chitraketu and explains him the birth and death happens on the philosophy of karma. There is nothing that the God has taken away your anandam, or your joy. So he is passed away on his karma, and you, as a learned person, should not lament on something that is temporary. Life itself is temporary. So then Chitraketu understands it to some extent. Then the Muni that comes, he tells him, the Angira Muni says, I am the Angira Muni that who has given you this blessing of having a baby. Now I'm telling you, this is not the reason for lamentation. Then Narada Muni, then with his all power, he brings the little boy back to life. When the little boy comes back to life, Narada Muni speaks to this little boy. He speaks to the soul of this little boy, and he tells, little son, your father, your mother, and all your relatives are suffering because of you departing from this body. Please come back to this body, take the life back in, and make them happy. Then the little boy tells Narada Muni, and he tells all the crowd there, who are my parents? Which parents are you talking about, Narada Muni? I had In previously, I have taken birth as a dog and I had dog parents. Previously, I have taken a birth as a cat and I had cat parents. I have taken birth as that animal, that parent, this parent, and now this parent, this parent. Which parent are you talking about, Narada Muni? I have left this body and I'm not connected to these parents anymore. Then Chitraketu, looking at this little son, he gets bewildered. He gets like, how come this little boy can speak so much of philosophy? And then Chitraketu realizes, materialistic life is very temporary. In Acharyas explain this. The relationship between two materialistic living creatures, materialistic living persons, to the relationship between two sand grains on the shore of a sea. The sand grains are pushed to the shore by water, by the waves, and then sand grains go back into the sea by the waves. But one grain remains on the sand, and the other grain moves to the sea. The relation between those two sand grains is so temporary. The association between two sand grains is so temporary with the time, with the wave, how the wave separates those two in the time, or the time factor of the God separates two living entities after their temporary association. This is true for any two living entities, a father, son, a mother, child. These two living entities come together after one existing and the second creature comes, and they travel together for a few years and they get separated. Sometimes two people, when get separated, they would never meet again in their life. A twig that falls off a tree, that breaks into two pieces, that falls onto a flowing stream, do not travel together. After a point, one might go further, one might just stay back there. Like that, Narada Muni explains Chitraketu that anything in this materialistic world is temporary. Anything in this materialistic world, one cannot expect the transcendental joy out of this materialistic world. What is transcendental joy? The transcendental happiness, which means something that is permanent. That transcendental happiness is never ever can be experienced in materialistic world. And Narada Muni then gives Chitraketu the to pray the God, and Chitraketu then puts the prayers together, and he starts praying, meditating on Sankarshana. Within 7 days, Chitraketu sees Sankarshana, and he gets he becomes even purified and self-realized soul, and he becomes a better Vaishnava. Then Chitraketu then he takes over a planet. Forget the name of the planet. Visva planet. So he's traveling as we enter into 17th chapter. This is the reason why Chitraketu becomes Rudrasura, or how Chitraketu becomes an Asura. So that's the chapter we'll be focusing on. So as the 17th chapter starts, Chitraketu will be going on one of his aeroplanes. One of his Pushpak Viman aeroplanes. He'll be going with all the women. And then he sees, at one point, Mahavishnu, Devi, Parvati Devi, sitting in presence of all the great devotees. But Parvati Devi would be sitting in the lap of Rudra, Shiva. She'll be sitting in the lap of Shiva, and Shiva, with his one hand on her, he'll be talking to all the devotees. So Chitraketu looking at this, he gets bewildered. Why? What is this happening? And let's read few slokas, few translations at least from this chapter. Sorry. So here, Sri Sukadeva Goswami said, after offering obeisances direction from the Supreme Personality Godhead is Chitraketu began traveling in outer space as the head of Vidyadhara planet. He starts ruling the Vidyadhara planet, and as the head of the planet, he's going on this. Being praised by great sages and saints, and by the inhabitants of Siddhaloka and Charanloka, Chitraketu, the most powerful mystic yogi, wandered about enjoying life for millions of years. With bodily strength and senses free from deterioration, he traveled within the valleys of Sumeru mountain, which is the place of perfection for various kinds of mystic powers. In those valleys, he enjoyed life with women of Vidyadhara Loka by chanting the glories of Supreme Lord Sri Hari. So again, he's enjoyed the life of the woman of Vidyadhara Loka by chanting the glories of Supreme Lord. It's again enjoying in two different aspects, right? One time, while King Chitraketu was traveling in outer space on a brilliantly effulgent aeroplane given to him by Lord Mahavishnu, he saw Lord Shiva surrounded by Siddhas and Charanas. Lord Shiva was sitting in an assembly of great saintly persons and embracing Parvati on his lap with his arm. Chitraketu laughed loudly and spoke within the hearing of Parvati. So what happened? So Chitraketu looking at this situation where Parvati Devi is sitting on the lap of Mahashiva and Shiva Maharudra in the presence of all his disciples. Chitraketu said, Lord Shiva, the spiritual master of general populace, is the best of all living entities who have accepted material bodies. Is the best of all living entities that have accepted material bodies. He enunciates the system of religion. Yet how wonderful it is that he's embracing his wife Parvati in the midst of an assembly of great saintly persons. Here Chitraketu gets a little bit confused. How come Lord Shiva have Parvati sitting on his lap in presence of all the people? People like a normal, common human beings, people on earth, living on earth planet themselves, when they are spending time with their spouse, they do it in private. And Lord Shiva, who is the best of materialistic persons, best of materialistic living in materialistic entities, is doing so. Lord Shiva, whose hair is matted on his head, had certainly undergone great austerities and penances. Instead, he is the president of the assembly of strict followers of Vedic principles. Nonetheless, he is seated with his wife on his lap in the midst of saintly persons and is embracing her as if he were a shameless, ordinary human being. So Chitraketa thought of this and he actually said these things in loudly. So in so much so that Bharati Devi also heard this. Ordinary conditioned person generally embrace their wife and enjoy their company in solitary place. How wonderful is that Lord Mahashiva, although a great master of austerity, is embracing his wife openly in the midst of an assembly of great saints. Sri Sukadev Goswami continued. My dear king, after hearing Chitraketu's statement, Lord Shiva, the most powerful personality, whose knowledge is fathomless, simply smiled and remained silent, and all the members of assembly followed the Lord by not saying anything. Hare Krishna. Here we should look at these things. If other saints there felt that there is a mistake in what Lord Shiva is doing, they would have walked out of that place. So you see what I'm saying? So when somebody says something against God, and then you see this in Yudhishthira's Rajasuya Yaga, where when Sisupala is actually blaspheming Lord Krishna, a lot of people, they just keep their ears closed. Some of them even walk out of that palace, walk out of that courtyard. But here, because they see that there is something wrong going on against the God, here these saints have not seen something wrong. But Chitraketu felt, if Lord Shiva himself is behaving like this in a public forum, what kind of example or what kind of lessons do common men learn from this? Prabhuji and Matajis, here what things we have to learn. Chitraketu had no bad intention against Shiva. He is not blaspheming Shiva. He is not finding fault with Shiva. But he, in a concern, he said so. In some in a concern, or let us examine that little more. Did he say so in a concern? Not knowing the prowess of Lord Shiva and Parvati, Chitraketu strongly criticized them. His statements were not at all pleasing, and therefore Goddess Parvati, being very angry, spoke as follows to Chitraketu, who thought himself better than Lord Shiva in controlling the senses. So Parvati is actually upset with what Chitraketu spoke. Why is Parvati upset with something we'll see later on? So what happens when somebody comes and is what do you call it, is saying something like this to your dear husband, the wife gets angry. So Parvati reacted angrily, saying, does this man know more than what all these saints, what all these sages, or what all these realized souls know? The goddess Parvati said, alas, has this upstart now received a post from which to punish shameless persons like us? Has he been appointed ruler, carrier of the rod of punishment? Is he now the only master of everything? Alas, Lord Brahma, who has taken birth from the lotus flower, does not know the principles of religion, nor do the great saints like Bhrigu and Narada, nor the four Kumaras headed by Sanat Kumara, Manu and Kapila have also forgotten the religious principles. I suppose it is because of this that they have not tried to stop Lord Shiva behaving improperly. This Chitraketu is the lowest of Kshatriyas, and he has impudently overridden Brahma and other demigods by insulting Lord Shiva, upon whose lotus feet they always meditate. Lord Shiva is personified religion and the spiritual master of the entire world, and therefore Chitraketu must be punished. So Lord Parvati Mata immediately punishes Chitraketu. The person is puffed up because of his achievements, thinking, I am the best. He does not deserve to approach the shelter of Lord Vishnu's lotus feet, which are worshipped by all saintly persons, for his impudent thinking himself greatly important. Again, just let's read through one or two more. O imprudent one, my dear son, now take birth in a low sinful family of demons, so that you will not commit such an offense again toward exalted saintly persons in the world. Hare Krishna. So we know Chitraketu has gone through a lot of things in life. He wanted a son, he longed for a son, and he had a son, and that son was lost, and then he's got self-realized, and then he became a devotee of Sankarshana. And then he took up the responsibility of taking care of a planet, and he's going with all his queens, and in praise of Lord Mahavishnu. But looking at Shiva, this one, with no ill intention towards Shiva, he has made a comment saying, if this Lord Shiva himself is behaving like this, what will happen to all other human beings? But Parvati Devi did not like this comment, and so much so that she punished him. She's punished him to a point where he's going to take birth in a Asura planet. He's going to take birth in an Asura planet. See how a person has fallen from such a great height to a lowest position, which is Asura. Then we understand the reason why he's in what you call it, a knowledgeable Asura who is again took that birth because of this curse. So Prabhuji and Mataji, so are you following the story so far? Because I'm not seeing any faces. That's the reason why I'm just not seeing any interaction.
Yes, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Vinira Mataji, yes, we are following the story, right? So why did Chitraketu behave like that? Or is there anything wrong in the Chitraketu's behavior?
Out of his false pride.
Out of his false pride. Sorry, Ma, Mataji. Hare Krishna. Anybody else? Out of his false pride. Who else? So we have seen another story. Where Lord Shiva was insulted. Right? Can you think of another story where Lord Shiva was insulted?
Raksha.
What is the difference between that story and this story?
But here I think Chitraketu does not have any bad intention.
Exactly. There in Daksha story, Daksha had all the bad intentions against Lord Shiva. He has come there, or he wanted to insult Lord Shiva, nothing else but insult Lord Shiva. Here, Chitraketu, he has no bad intention, but still he had to take he had to take the beating, or he had to take the curse of Parvati. There is, so as he became a devotee of Sankarsana, and he knows Lord Shiva is also a devotee of Sankarsana, he took liberty to speak out something because of little pride, not fully filled with false ego like Daksha, thinking that he is the greatest because he's a Prajapati, but with little pride, he took some liberty in trying to not find fault with Shiva, but trying to ask Shiva, or trying to point out to Shiva, hey, if you do it like this, what will happen to human beings? So, Prabhuji and Mataji, Shiva is a Vaishnava. So, when we do certain thing, even like this, with little, in the name of trying to find, we see this a lot of times in the devotee circles. So in the name of trying to fix the other person, we start satisfying our ego. This is something we should sometimes that comes out of envy. In our cases, I'm saying, sometimes it comes out of envy. Sometimes it comes out because a particular person is able to do a particular service better than what you think you are able to do. Then in the camouflaging of that, we camouflage that envy in terms of suggesting. Prabhuji and Matajis, why do we call somebody Prabhu? Why do we call somebody Prabhuji or Mataji? Who wants to answer this question? We always call these things, right? We always call another person Prabhuji, another person Mataji. Why do we do this? And how much are we doing it with wholehearted?
Respect,
Can anybody?
Prabhu.
Yeah, Prabhu, Satyadeva Prabhu. Tell me, Prabhu.
Respect, out of respect, and also to have that, instead of calling by name or something, to have that relation.
Okay.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, to remind ourselves that we are the servant of the servant of the servant, Prabhuji.
Exactly, Mataji. When you call somebody Prabhu, when you're calling somebody Prabhu, we are reminding ourselves we are in the mode of a servant. When you're calling somebody Mataji, I am ready to serve you as your son. My respect for you is as much as my respect for you, for my own mother. So I am treating you no less than that. And I am treating myself no less than a servant. So when we are in that mode, if we are in that mode, there is no question of what Chitraketu has done. There is no reason for us to do what Chitraketu has done. Then we also see in our circles, actually, I'm not trying to point out anybody or anything here. We speak out something and we say, Krishna made me to speak like this. In this story, for Parvati, there is a reason why she spoke like that. We see the shloka meaning itself. My dear son, now take birth in a low sinful family of demons, so that you will not commit such an offense again towards exalted saintly persons in this world. So one has to be in the mode of that kind of highest mode to be able to say, I am speaking something to fix something. That I'm able to speak something, or the Lord is making me to speak something to fix something that you are not able to fix. I don't think any of us are in that mode, Prabhuji. We should not take shelter in these kind of things and try to behave on our own. What happens? What happens? What happens if we do that? A great soul, a self-realized soul, who was able to get the blessings of Sankrishna, has fallen into Asura planet. Krishna, Prabhuji and Matajis, you're able to follow Prabhuji and Matajis?
Yes,
So that's the importance of forget about Vaishnava Dharma and all. That's the importance to clean ourselves, just to clean ourselves, to get ourselves into that self-realized state of mind. So when it comes to 16th sloka, this is where we said so Sukadeva Goswami continued, my dear King Parikshit, when Chitraketu was cursed by Parvati, he descended from his aeroplane, bowed before her with great humility, and pleased her completely. Chitraketu has no anger at all. He is a Vaishnava. He said, Chitraketu, my dear mother, with my own hands folded together, I accept the curse upon me. I do not mind the curse, for happiness and distress are given by demigods as a result of one's past deeds. I am not even trying to judge. I'm not even trying to justify what I said. I'm not even trying to judge what you have said. I'm taking the curse as a result of my past deed. This is what devatas are meant to do to human beings. They gift us based on our deeds. They gift us based on our karma. This is my karma that is making me to take this curse. I'm not unhappy about it. I'm just going to follow for your instructions, and with wholeheartedly I accept it. Deluded by ignorance, the living entity wanders in the forest of this material world, enjoying the happiness and distress resulting from the past deeds everywhere and at all times. Therefore, my dear mother, neither you nor I am to be blamed for this incident. I'm not trying to blame myself or blame you for this incident of me getting this curse. It is the result of my past karma. In this material world, neither the living entity himself nor others, friends and enemies, are the cause of material happiness and distress. But because of gross ignorance, the living entity thinks that he and others are the cause. We always think, I am the sufferer, I am the victim, and the other person is the culprit. So in the process, what is happening? Who is suffering? The Krishna consciousness is suffering. The more we think I am the victim and the other person is the culprit, then we are making the God consciousness go out of the system. But when you can put God consciousness in the system, so there's only one thing that's common between you and other living entity. Both have the Paramatma factor in it. When we can realize that point, that thing, and see that commonality, because then at that point of time, the basic body structure of the basic materialistic wagon that each one of us are carrying are temporary until we realize our fixed position of the permanent position. That's the binding between both jivas, the Paramatma factor, and we take shelter in that. It's not easy. Being in materialistic world, get the spiritual taste of it. And that is what is needed. That's all. All that is needed is being in materialistic world, get the taste of spirituality, get the taste of the transcendental nature of God. And God is always there to help, either in the form of Narada or in the form of other guru to give you the direction. But we, instead of looking in that direction, we get carried away. By the vasanas, or by whatever this particular vehicle or particular body, particular jiva is being given, materialistic body that is being given to each one of us as a result of our past karma. We take it as we pride in it, and we start behaving, or we start trying to get a supremacy of the situation, basically. So having said that, we'll try to read through few slokas and their purports. 19 sloka, we ready? Text 19. Okay.
Krishna, text 19. नैवात्माना परश्चापि कर्ता स्यात् सुख दुःखयोः कर्तारं मन्यते अत्राज्ञा आत्मानं परमेव च.
in this material world, neither the living entity himself nor others, friends, are the cause of the material happiness and distress. But because of gross ignorance, the living entity thinks that he and others are the cause. Hare Krishna. Let's read the Srila Prabhupada purport. Does anybody wants to read the purport, Prabhuji?
I will read,
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Balamani Mataji, want to read the purport, Mataji? Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. In this verse, the word Ajita is very significant. In the material world, all living entities are Ajna, ignorant. In different degrees, the ignorance continues very strongly in the mode of ignorance presented by material nature. One must therefore promote himself to the stage of goodness through his character and behavior, and then gradually come to the transcendental platform or adokshasa platform, in which he realizes both his position and the position of others. Everything is done under the superintendence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The process by which the results of action are ordained is called Niyatam, always working. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. The ignorance continues very strongly in the mode of ignorance presented by the material nature. We have seen this many number of times, where in Prithu Maharaj and Devendra Indra's story, where Prithu Maharaj realizes that Prithu Maharaj is made to realize by Mahavishnu that Indra's behavior is by the three modes of material nature, because at that point of time he is conditioned by three modes of material nature. So the ignorance continues very strongly in the mode of ignorance presented by the material nature. One must therefore promote himself. Again, we have to do it ourselves, promote himself to the stage of goodness through his character and behavior, and then gradually come to the transcendental platform. It's not a one-day activity. Because why it's not one-day activity? Because the faster you think you're growing, the faster there is a reason for you to fall with the smallest stumble that you come across. So, and the gradual progress has to be non-reversible habits, non-reversible character building, non-reversible behavior that puts us to transcendental platform. That's what this association had to be used for. If not, it becomes just a recreational activity. Okay, right? Unless we get to the transcendental platform or adhokshaja platform, in which he realizes both his position and position of the others. It's important that we realize our spiritual position, our permanent position. And at the same time, it's important for us to realize every other living creature's position, their permanent position. And everything is done under the superintendence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This process, the process by which the results of actions are ordained, is called Niyatam. It's always working. So again, God says, He's just created a mechanism for each one of us to transform. In that mechanism, karma plays a big role. The three modes of material nature plays a big role. More than all these things, our free will plays a bigger role. Our free will, if not utilized to build up the character, build up the behavior that puts us towards a transcendental platform, we have misused everything that we have. We have misused every opportunity that the superintendence, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is providing at every interval of our life, at every instance of our life, at every breath of our life. The opportunity is there. But that opportunity is not seen when our behavior is shadowed with our own ego. Right? Hare Krishna Prabhu. Let's go to the next sloka. Are we doing this somewhere? 20th sloka. Yeah.
Text 20. Guna pravaha etasmin kaha shapah konvanugraha kaha swargo narakah kova kim sukham dukkham eva va.
Hare Krishna. the material world resembles the waves of constantly flowing rivers. Therefore, what is a curse and what is a favor? What are the heavenly planets and what are the hellish planets? What is actually happiness and what is actually distress? Because the waves flow constantly, none of them has an eternal effect. The waves flow constantly. None of them have permanent effect. Anything that's coming through materialistic world, what is really permanent in materialistic world is materialistic world itself. But anything coming out of materialistic world is not permanent. The God says in Bhagavad Gita, my energy, my Nyona energy, my inferior energy is permanent, but the objects coming out of inferior energy are not permanent. This is something we should realize. Okay, see, then let's go to the purport, Srila Prabhupada purport. Who wants to read the purport, Prabhuji? 20, right?
Krishna Prabhu, can I-
Yes, Mataji.
Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur sings, Micha Mayara Vase Yacha Bese, Kacha Habu Dubu Bhai. My dear living entities within this material world, why are you being carried away by the waves of material modes of material nature? Jiva Krishna Dasa Ye Vishwasa Karle Ara Dukkanai. If the living entity tries to understand that he is the eternal servant of Krishna, there will no longer be misery for him. Krishna wants us to give up all other engagements and surrender unto him. If we do so, where will the cause and effect of this material world be? There is nothing like the cause and effect for the surrendered soul. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakura says in this regard that being put into this material world is like being thrown into a mine of salt. If one falls into a mine of salt, he tastes only salt wherever he goes. Similarly, this material world is full of miseries. The so-called temporary happiness of this world is also a misery, but in ignorance, we cannot understand this. This is the actual position. When one comes into his senses, when he becomes Krishna conscious, he is no longer concerned with the various conditions of this material world. He is not concerned with happiness or distress, causes or favors, or heavenly or hellish planets. He sees no distinction between them.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. So this is the knowledge of Chitraketu, basically, right? So we as human beings, we in the materialistic world are living in a like as if we are living in a mine of salt. And what happens in a mine of salt if you start digging out and start searching for sugar? You will never find the sweetness in a mine of salt, and so is the materialistic world. When you start searching for materialistic happiness, you'll start finding it, but it's never permanent, because the material world resembles the waves of constantly flowing rivers. Therefore, that's the constantly flowing rivers is the river is nothing but the time factor of the God, basically. Therefore, what is a curse and what is a favor? So Chitraketu is thinking he doesn't care as long as the curse of it does not matter to him if the curse is putting him in the Asura planet or Devi planet, wherever it is, as long as he's able to serve the God, as long as he's able to maintain his consciousness. Again, if you look at the Trasura story, he comes out of the fire as Asura, and he lives very short life. In all honesty, all he does is he hasn't gone through a huge what do you call, all the miseries of an Asura. He still had his consciousness very clear. It didn't matter to him what body he is in. It didn't matter to him whom is fighting. It all mattered to him how to get out of that particular body, and he was just waiting for Indra to kill him. Basically, he tells Indra, "Please kill me. Please liberate me from this. I'm just waiting to be liberated from here, and I'm going to trouble you as long as you're not liberating me." And he kicks the Iravatam, he kicks that, he does this and all that stuff. See, because he had the little pride, and Mata Parvati Devi, just like a mother who is trying to fix the son, she cursed him into a point where he defeats that even that little tendency towards speaking something that even if he has done it not with an intention of Vaishnava Parada, but can be looked as not an aparadha from outside, but more a purification of himself, a reason for purifying himself. So Mata Parvati Devi is here trying to fix his problem and deliver him to the God, deliver him to the Supreme Lord. So once Rudrasura dies, he just goes to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, basically without any other problem, right? But here again, we should understand this sloka where we think we are caught ourselves in a hill of, in a mine of salt and start searching for happiness of that sugar, and that does not happen. That does not happen. Or what happens when you get into consciousness? It's not that the salt is going to become sugar, but the salt doesn't bother you anymore. The consciousness is not. That's what we think sometimes. I have come into Krishna consciousness, so now whatever I'm touching should become gold, basically. So that is again, you're looking for a materialistic benefit, but that's not what it is. But the materialistic misery should not bother you anymore. So again, going into consciousness or going into devotional service, in thinking that it is going to change something for you within this world, which means again that's going to give you, you're searching for materialistic happiness at the cost of what you could have gotten is a transcendental happiness, a divine happiness. Instead, wasting that opportunity in search of a materialistic happiness. And that's not what it should be. But our consciousness should take to a point to us to a point where we are not bothered by the salt, but not searching for the sugar. So it should come to a point. He is not concerned with the happiness or distress, curses or favors, or heavenly or hellish planets. He sees no distinction between them. Let's go to the next shloka. We're doing in time, probably another 5-6 of us, and we'll keep it. Thank you.
Text 21. Ekah srijati bhutani bhagavanatma mayaya esham bandham cha moksham cha sukham dukkham cha nishkalaha.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead is one, unaffected by the conditions of the material world. He creates all the conditioned souls by his own personal potency. Because of being contaminated by the material energy, the living entity is put into ignorance and thus into different conditions of bondage. Sometimes, by knowledge, the living entity is given liberation. In Sattva Guna and Rajo Guna, he is subjected to happiness and distress. Hare Krishna. Let's quickly read this purport, Prabhuji and Mataji. Can somebody help me read?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, I will read it. Prabhuji.
Okay, Prabhuji. Thank you, Prabhuji.
The question may be raised why the living entities are situated in different conditions and who has arranged this. The answer is that it has been done by Supreme Personality of Godhead without anyone's help. The Lord has his own energies. Parasya Shaktir Vividhaiva Shruyate. And one of them, namely the external energy, creates the material world and the varieties of happiness and distress for the conditioned souls under the supervision of the Lord. The material world consists of 3 modes of material nature: Sattva-guna, Rajoguna, and Tamoguna. By Sattva-guna, the Lord maintains the material world. By Rajoguna, he creates it. And by Tamoguna, he annihilates it. After the varieties of living entities are created, they are subjected to happiness and distress according to their association. When they are in Sattva-guna, the mode of goodness, they feel happiness. And when in Rajoguna, they're distressed. And when in Tamoguna, they have no sense of what to do or what is right and wrong.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is one, unaffected by the conditions of material world. See, the personality of Godhead is unaffected, but he creates all the conditioned souls. Again, here we are talking about the Rajoguna, Tamoguna, and Sattoguna, in which the materialistic world is ruled. Because of being contaminated by material energy, because this living entity is in direct connection, that it is contaminated with the material energy, the living entity is put into ignorance and thus into different conditions of bondage. sometimes by knowledge, the living entity is given liberation. So again, we're talking about the three gunas, the sattva-guna, rajoguna, tamo-guna, but all these three gunas have their limitations. Again, as long as you're in contamination, because you're into one of these gunas because you're being contaminated by material energy. But somebody who can overcome this by only knowledge. The reason the purpose of knowledge has to be limited to overcome these gunas and come to a Suddha Sattva guna and see the Bhakti Yoga aspect of life. To that extent, the knowledge has to be utilized for. Because why do you have to go into the Bhakti Yoga phase of life? Because that's what is permanent. No, that's the medium to get to a point of a permanent solution. So that's the knowledge. That's where this knowledge has to be useful. The jnana has to be useful to overcome this, to get to that liberation state. In Sattva-guna and Rajoguna, he is subjected to happiness and distress. Even Sattva-guna and Rajoguna, even in Sattva-guna, he is subjected to happiness and distress. But beyond that is the Suddha Sattva-guna, where he is not influenced by the happiness or the sorrow. It's not that you are going to get into a permanent happiness state. So it's a point where you are not going to be influenced by either of these modes, and that ultimately takes you to a point of liberation, or ultimately takes you to a point of understanding, or to a point of transcendental nature of Jiva Tattva, transcendental nature of life, that is away from the in connection with the materialistic energy. That takes, God talks about is the inferior energy and superior energy, and that switch has to happen. And the tool for it is the jnana of the knowledge that helps you get to the liberation point. This is what Chitraketu is explaining to Parvati Devi. Then let's see two more shlokas, and then move on.
Text 22. Na tasya kaschid dayitah pratipo nagnati paro na cha swaha samasya sarvatra niranjanasya sukhena raga kuta eva roshaha.
Hare Krishna. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is equally disposed towards all living entities. Therefore, no one is very dear to him. No one is a great enemy for him. No one is his friend. No one is his relative. Being unattached to the material world, he has no affection for so-called happiness or hatred for the so-called distress. The two terms happiness, distress are relative. Since the Lord is always happy, for him, there is no question of distress. So again, he is explaining Parvati why he is not worried about the curse, because this is coming because of his karma. This is coming because of activities he has performed in contamination with the materialistic energy. And then he is explaining Parvati Devi. He understands the limitation and the nature of this world. He understands what the role of God is in this. He understands he does not even really have to understand the reason for his curse, but he is more than happy to accept the curse. The third shloka.
Text 23. Tathapi tachakti visarga esham sukhaya dukkhaya hitaya bandhaya mokshaya cha mrityu janmano sharirinam samsritayeva kalpate.
Although the Supreme Lord is unattached to our happiness and distress according to karma, and although no one is his enemy or favorite, he creates impious activities through the agency of his material potency. Although no one is his enemy or favorite, he creates pious and impious activities through the agencies of his material potency. Thus, for the continuation of the materialistic way of life, he creates happiness and distress, good fortune and bad bondage and liberation, birth and death. So, Supreme Personality of Godhead has done that only for a reason, basically. But again, he's not doing it for his happiness or distress, because these things happen in the cycle of birth and death, in the cycle of karma, basically in the cycle of karma. Hare Krishna. Is there anybody else who wants to read one more purport?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Shall I read?
Yes, Mataji, Padma Mataji. Thank you, Mataji.
Although the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the ultimate doer of everything, in his original transcendental existence. He is not responsible for the happiness and distress or bondage and liberation of the conditioned souls. These are due to the results of the fruitive activities of the living entities within this material world. By the order of a judge, one person is released from jail and another is imprisoned, but the judge is not responsible for the distress and happiness of these different people is due to their own activities. Although the government is ultimately the supreme authority, the justice is administered by the departments of the government, and the government is not responsible for the individual judgments. Therefore, the government is equal to all the citizens. Similarly, the Supreme Lord is neutral to everyone, but for the maintenance of law and order, his supreme government has various departments which control the activities of the living entities. Another example given in this regard is that lilies open or close because of the sunshine, and thus the bumblebees enjoy or suffer, but the sunshine and the sun globe are not responsible for the happiness and distress of the bumblebees. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Although the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the ultimate doer of everything, in his original transcendental existence, he is not responsible for the happiness or distress of bondage of liberation of the conditioned souls. Again, this is what Chitraketu is explaining to Lord Parvati Devi in his purport. Prabhupada is saying how Chitraketu is such a learned person. He understands how the materialistic world works, and we saw in the 16th chapter, Shloka 58 to 61, when he first realized that his son is dead, he and his wife, they actually cursed God. They actually says, like, why did you create such a son, and why did you have to take away such a son and stuff? That you can see the transformation of this person that happened after his association with Narada, after his association with Sankarsana, and now he's come to a point where, in the first place, we have seen he being taken away his son, versus here he being cursed to a point of what? Asura Loka, to such a state. But his reaction at that point of time and his reaction at this point of time, you see the transformation of a person in association of a guru, in association of a mantra, in practice of a mantra, in practice of devotional service, devotional life, and how the transcendental nature has given him a better understanding of a materialistic world that's now actually putting him even closer to the God. And he's come to a point where he does not even have to react to the curse that has been given by Bharati Mata herself, right? Because he says, this is all just part and parcel of the materialistic life's principles, the principles under which the materialistic life is governed, are the principles under which the karma is carried over a period of time, how it personifies or how it transforms into or how it impacts him, but his nature. But he understands his fundamental duty of being constant in connection, or constant in the consciousness of God, that he does not have to even react to a point of a curse that is putting him in Asura Loka. Though, oh mother, you are now unnecessarily angry, but since all my happiness and distress are destined by my past activities, I do not plead to be excused or relieved from your curse. Although what I have said is not wrong, please let whatever you think is wrong be pardoned. Please pardon me, though I think I have not done anything wrong. But if you have thought there is something that I have done wrong, please pardon me. Please pardon me. But I'm not even asking you to reverse the curse. I'm here to take the curse, because I don't think the curse has anything to do with you. It's all has got to do with me, because of my past karma. It has come to me. Being fully aware of how the results of one's karma occur, and by the laws of nature, Chitraketu did not want to be released from Parvati's curse. Nonetheless, he wanted to satisfy her, because although his verdict is natural, she was displeased with him. As a matter of course, Maharaja Chitraketu begged pardon from Parvati. It doesn't matter when we call somebody Mataji, whether it doesn't matter if it's our mistake or not. When we call somebody Prabhuji, it doesn't matter or it's our mistake or not. We don't have to justify what we have done, but we have to be ourselves, remind ourselves, our state is servant of the servant state, and no room for the ego to pop up even for a quick nanosecond, right? Prabhuji and Mataji, this is the state of mind one has to come into once you want to fix yourself in Krishna consciousness and move on into the transcendental world that's away from the materialistic world, or a world that's away from contamination of the materialistic energy. Hare Krishna. Then if you go further, then Lord Shiva explains, Sukadeva Goswami continued, O King Parikshit, subduer of the enemy, after Chitraketu satisfied Lord Shiva and his wife Parvati, he boarded his plane and left as they looked down. When Lord Shiva and Parvati saw that Chitraketu, although informed of the curse, was unafraid, they smiled, being fully astonished by his behavior. And then Lord Shiva speaks about thereafter, in the presence of great sages, great sage Narada, the demons, the inhabitants of Siddhaloka, and his personal associates, Lord Shiva, who is most powerful, spoke to his wife Parvati while they are listening. So let's quickly go through a couple of translations of Lord Shiva conversation. My dear beautiful Parvati, have you seen the greatness of the Vaishnavas, being servants of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari? They are great souls and are not interested in any kind of material happiness. This is the state Lord Shiva expects us to be in. Devotees solely engaged in devotional service of Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayana, never fear any condition of life. For them, the heavenly planets, liberation, and the hellish planets are the same. For such devotees are interested only in the service of the Lord. Whatever the situation may be, our mind has to be in that fixed, constant consciousness of service of the Lord, irrespective of what kind of problems we think we are facing. Because of actions of the Supreme Lord's external energy, the living entities are conditioned in contact with material bodies. The dualities of happiness and distress, birth and death, curses and favors are natural byproducts of this contact in the material world. It's nothing, it's all resultant of the contact with the material world. But a Vaishnava, a true Vaishnava, understands this and does not react. As one mistakenly considers a flower garland to be a snake, or experience happiness and distress in a tree, so the material world, by lack of careful consideration, we differentiate between happiness and distress, considering one is good and the other is bad. But bottom line, both of them are for only one purpose. The purpose is transforming or getting to a point of self-realization. Hare Krishna. So these are all again other shlokas where Lord Shiva talks about Krishna and the nature of the material world. So I'll again go to one more translation I thought I would just read that gives the position of Lord Shiva. Neither I, Lord Shiva, nor Brahma, or Ashwini Kumars, or Naradas, or great sages who are Brahma's sons, nor even the demigods can understand the pastimes and personality of the Supreme Lord. Although we are part of Supreme Lord, we consider ourselves independent, separate controllers, and thus we cannot understand his identity. See, including Shiva, he's blaming himself, including myself, my position. We are all subordinates to Lord Krishna, and still we do not understand this. Our own position is what Lord Shiva himself is saying. So let's go to one more 36th translation and then we can conclude it. Here again, Sukadeva Goswami said, O king, after hearing this speech by her husband, now the demigod is Uma, the wife of Lord Shiva, gave up her astonishment at the behavior of King Chitraketu and became steady in intelligence. Hare Krishna. So when Parvati understood that her curse is actually hasn't bothered him anything because of his Vaishnava nature, his Vaishnava behavior, and his total consciousness into the total service mode in his, I mean, his consciousness of God in its service mode has actually bewildered Parvati. But then she understands that position, and she accepts what Lord Shiva said, and then Lord Shiva again explains. So in Acharyaji explains why Parvati has to give such a curse. It's only to rectify Chitraketu. So that smallest tinge of pride that he still had, and then because at that point of time even Lord Shiva and Parvati are also part of the materialistic energy, but they're the semi-god's nature. So they understand the reason for their curse, and then the story moves on basically. Hare Krishna. So with that, I think we are closing the story, Prabhuji, to understand the great devotional nature of Chitraketu and why he became Rudrasura and how that liberated the Dichi. But for us, we need to understand a lot of parallels between parallels that are always there in all Bhagavata stories, where Narada comes to rescue his devotees. We see how devotees have transformed themselves from a state of point A to point B in association of a great saint like Narada and other munis. So this is what we need to take from this lesson, Prabhuji and Mataji. With that, I'm concluding the story, or concluding this Chitraketu story. If there are any questions, we'll take for a few minutes. Hare Krishna. Did it make any sense, Prabhuji and Mataji, or is it?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Who is this?
Prabhuji, one quick question is, sometime even now Parvati realized that once she did mistake, but she cursed Chitraketu. So she cannot take her cursing back. So what is the reason behind it?
So it is like this, Prabhuji. We see little children doing something mischief. To correct them, a mother might beat him, and then after that she realizes that the boy has realized his mistake. But then that was okay. No, she's not going to go and ask forgiveness to the little boy. Basically, I cursed you or I beaten you up for no reason, because the purpose has been served. So similarly, here the reason why Parvati Devi had to give that curse is to fix that little element of pride with which Chitraketu felt liberty of speaking the way he was speaking to Lord Shiva. It's not about fault. It's not about there is a fault in what he's speaking or not. It is about that anartha, that little anartha that is left needed to be cleansed before he's able to, or before he got the eligibility to enter into the kingdom of God, basically. That's the reason why she did. And it's not like Lord Shiva was trying to correct Parvati Devi and say, you have cursed him unnecessarily. It's not that. He's only explaining the way this energy works, the way the materialistic energy works, and the way Chitraketu's behavior is, because he's learned, he's beyond that point of the only thing Shiva is explaining is why Chitraketu did not react to her curse. He's kind of saying your curse has no effect on him, basically. He's kind of saying if you have taken if you are trying to take some satisfaction in his suffering, that's not going to happen, because he's already a learned man. For him, happiness and distress are the same, because he understands happiness and distress are part of the materialistic energy, because he understands he's in the materialistic world, because he understands what his journey is, that service of the God. And then Chitraketu also said the same thing. I understand. I mean, I do not really have to judge whether you have done a good job or not, whether you are right or not. I will take it. If my behavior has caused some distress to you, I ask you to pardon me. And I take the curse as not your curse, but a deed of mine, a result of a karmic deed of mine is what he did. So then it's not about correcting Parvati Devi or correcting Chitraketu, basically. Right, Prabhu? Did that help answer anything, Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you very much, Prabhuji. I got it, Prabhuji.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. Anything else, Prabhu? Sin Mataji, any realizations or any comments, anything you want to add? Praveen Prabhuji, Sima Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Dandavat Pranam Prabhuji. So I think this is a very interesting pastime that we can learn on how a little tinge of
Yes.
That ego or like pride can still land you in trouble. And the comparison with the Daksha story is very, very nice. It's very clear that Daksha story is very clear, but here sometimes you may get confused on, who is right, who is wrong. And that you explained very well, Prabhuji, but it's a very introspective story to think about ourselves. And after some time in Krishna consciousness, how our behavior can lead to different situations and how to think about it.
Subtle aspects of how material world, material energies, energy functions. The subtle aspects of it are dealt in this story is what I felt, Prabhu. There's a lot of times we see very easily Dhruva got scolded, or Dhruva went and tried to fight the Yakshas, or Indra was taking away the Aswamedha, Prithu Maharaj. They're all clear, very clear actions. Here the action is so subtle. The action is so subtle with no negative intention, but has a consequence of going to from the highest to the best life to a Asura Janma, and an Asura Janma, a knowledgeable Asura Janma, but to clean up that small subtle aspects of behavior.
Yeah, that tells us about Vaishnava Aparad, Prabhuji. Vaishnava Aparad is a very big deal, even with that little tinge of pride.
Little tinge of pride, that's the underlying thing basically, more than the aparad itself. The root cause of behavior is that purification is what is needed, is what needs to be taken away from this story basically.
Yes, yes.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
So you did a very good job, Prabhuji. Very nice pravachan. And this is the, if you remember, this is the, I think the first slate session started with this story only with Radheshyam Prabhuji. And that was the first time I heard Prabhuji. This whole story is extremely relatable, Prabhuji. Mainly because one of the constant things that one has to go through in this material world, whether it is a man, woman, householder, anybody working, non-working, at home, at work, we all have to go through criticism, Prabhuji. Somebody or the other will always be there to comment on what we did, how we did, whether it was in the right way or wrong way, whether or not we asked for it, right? Yeah. It's not like we seek, but criticism is part of our life somehow. And this story has multiple ranges of how to deal with it. Right. And nicely, we can compare it with Dhruva Maharaj's story. We can bring in Daksha Prajapati's episode. So a lot of comparisons can be made, and it sort of it sort of validates the purports, and I mean, of course, Srila Prabhupada's purports are always like that, and it really solidifies the core lesson that we want to take out of this. How many ever times we read, we can learn more and more out of this story, Prabhuji. So thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you, Prabhuji. And I was thinking, doing good things is one, and avoiding bad things is totally other. Although it both looks like it has the same effect. Like how we were, like there is a question that's going to come in today's exam, right? Pravritti, Nivritti. Pravritti is doing things properly, and Nivritti is not doing things improperly.
Yeah.
at the outset, yesterday my mother was asking, both are same, no? And we were discussing. And actually both are not same. I mean, we understood it from the Bhakti Shastri discussion itself, and I have taken a note because even that was perplexing for me. Doing good thing and not doing bad thing should be same, but they are not. And doing good thing is a mode of passion, and not doing bad things is mode of goodness. So not doing bad thing is more elevated than doing good things. And Chitraketu's story is also something that supports this, Prabhuji.
Right.
So it was very nice, Prabhuji. Thank you so much for
Hare Krishna,
choosing.
Mataji. Thank you, Mataji. I did not realize, I don't remember Radhesham Prabhuji's first class on this one, Mataji. Probably I should go back and listen to that class again. Maybe we in our Bhagavatam readings we are right around this chapter, 17th chapter. So I thought we'll just talk about it for the benefit of people like Balamani Mataji, Vijaya Mataji. They're all attending the class, so the same topic I was speaking here basically. Sujata
No,
Mataji.
Prabhuji. I mean, that was the best thing. We can have this again and again.
Yes, Mataji. Yes, Mataji. Hare Krishna. If I said something wrong, please forgive me, Mataji. I have probably I should have done a little more homework and looked for that slate session.
No, Prabhuji. It was just perfect. Your class was perfect. Yeah.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dhanapranam Prabhuji, Lilananda Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Dandavad from Prabhuji. Wonderful session, Prabhuji. Wonderful topic. One of the best, my favorite topics in Bhagavatam, especially the conversation between Chitraketu Maharaj and Parvati, Mother Parvati. From various senior devotees I've heard this pastime, Prabhuji. Various senior devotees I've heard. And every time I heard, I felt I don't know this as much. Because there is so much to learn, so much to apply in our life out of this. One thing I remember one senior devotee explaining from this pastime, if you allow me to share, Prabhuji, is how much valuable and is Vaishnava association, and how careful we should be in that association also. Right? Yeah. That is what he was trying to explain using this pastime. That Chitraketu Maharaj was an amazing Vaishnava. He was in midst of Vaishnavas, and he went to the most elevated Vaishnava, which is Lord Shiva, Vaishnavana Mita Shambhu. And yet, with a small negligence, of course, it's a pastime, but with a small negligence of not understanding the aspect that his wife was with him, he commented. And the comment does not only apply to Lord Shiva, indirectly it also applies to Mother Parvati. Right? Though he didn't mean to comment on Mother Parvati, he was commenting on Lord Shiva only. And Lord Shiva later on explains that he has every right to do that because he is an elevated Vaishnava. And he was not actually commenting or laughing on me. He was, there is a different mood in which he was doing, but he didn't realize that he was actually also commenting on Mother Parvati, right? Which is where Mother Parvati felt that, one second, sorry. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, Prabhu.
Yeah. So, which is where even Mother Parvati didn't feel that he was insulting her, but it was more about her husband. But then you should see the complex situation between Vaishnavas. All three of them are Vaishnavas, if you really look at it. All three of them are Vaishnavas. Yet the curse happened. Oh, 1 minute, Prabhuji. Yeah. Yeah, I'm back. Yeah, I'm back. Sorry. Yeah. So all three of them are Vaishnavas, and yet this happened. And all three of them are not ordinary Vaishnavas, not right. They are like all great Vaishnavas, right? But still the curse happened, and the whole next life happened, and the whole episode, of course, to teach us a lesson. This was all the sweet will of Lord Krishna. but how careful we should be as Vaishnavas, or practicing Vaishnavas in the satsang is, should be learnt out of this episode. That's what I heard from the devotee. It's very dangerous when we treat devotees in satsang like we treat materialistic people outside. Right? It's very dangerous. Actually, we should stop our behavior of treating materialistic people outside also, to avoid such mistakes. Right? Like in Upadeshamrita, Nectar of Instruction, we heard in the class that how we should stop using filthy language, or we should stop using arrogant words, even in our materialistic circles, because one day or the other we'll also use it on a devotee. Even in materialistic circles, if we are doubting too much, or we are trying to, if we are leading a very non-devotional life in a materialistic circle, one or the other day it is going to come into this devotee circle also. And devotional life is two-edged sword. Whichever side you hold it, it is going to cut us. And the worst thing that can happen is we go back to our materialistic life and completely leave devotees. That's the worst thing that can happen. And a lot of us don't really, unfortunately, they don't realize that going back will take half a day, but coming back will take lifetimes. And especially if you offend a Vaishnava and you go back, my God, only Krishna has to do something special to bring you back. This pastime is very instructive, Prabhu. Thank you, and it was something
Krishna,
very
Prabhu.
nice to,
So
very
I
nice to
think
dwell.
you can spend lot of time just between the conversation of Chitraketu and Parvati Devi. But I didn't know if I should be starting with that, because I thought I should put some story in front, and I had to start from beginning.
Yes.
Yes,
Thank
Prabhu.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Prabhu. Dandavata Prabhu.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. Dandavata Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Satyadev Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, this story actually is a little bit scary, Prabhuji.
Yeah, yes, we are in 6th canto, Prabhu. Going further, it will be even scarier.
Because we know that Chitraketu Maharaj is a exalted devotee, and even though his intentions is good, and it's a tinge of, you said it's a tinge of pride, and he could able to fall down like this.
Yes.
I could imagine myself how many millions of births I had to take, even though we came to Krishna consciousness.
Yes,
That
Prabhu.
is really scary, Prabhuji.
Yes, Prabhu. Prabhu, as Lilananda Prabhuji always keeps saying, our brain, our mind has to be twisted in these directions before we can read 10th canto.
I mean, here I was thinking at that time, it could be like even little humor also. Like maybe Chitraketu Maharaj was trying to be a little humorous, saying that, ఓన్లీ శివుడికే సాధ్యం అవుతుంది అట్లాంటి పని అనేసి అన్న ఉద్దేశంలో చెప్పుంటాడు.
No, since morning, me and Newton were discussing the same thing. Where do you draw a line between humor and a statement, basically? Where do you draw a line between humor and an instruction? Within satsang association conversations also, we have to get through these things and cross those barriers of materialistic influence, Prabhu, and fix those subtle things, Prabhu. If you really are serious about getting to the mode of 10th canto, basically the mode of the rasa with Bhagavan. Prabhu, I was thinking the same thing. As you go further in Bhagavatam, each story has to put you at the next step, Prabhu. And this is, as you said, it is very delicate thing that is being explained, where you're talking about Parvati Devi feeling to a point where she needed to curse somebody who is a self-realized Vaishnava. As Lilananda Prabhuji said, the conversation is very powerful. The conversation is very powerful, very powerful. All the three slokas that are covering all the three conversations, all the three people's who are Chitraketu's thought process, Parvati Devi thought process, Lord Shiva's thought process. All three of them are very powerful.
Yeah, that's what, Prabhuji. I mean, like we get familiar, the familiarity issue, Prabhuji. I mean, we get familiar with our devotee circles, saying that, okay, no, oh, I know this Prabhu for so many years. So does it does it not give any right, like, you can be jokeful or humorous to the fellow devotees also? Sometimes I feel like, oh, because of the familiarity, if I say something, even though my intention was not correct, maybe I'm actually making some offense.
So, Prabhuji, it's a familiarity or to satisfy an element of false ego, or to satisfy an element of your misknowledge. Yeah, any of those things, if it is coming from that aspect, because we should be aware in the materialistic world, every minute we struggle to show our supremacy. We struggle to show our supremacy over the situation. And if it is coming due to that, a humorous joke also is trying to show that you made a good joke because you want to show some supremacy, then that's a problem in itself, probably that's a problem in itself. It's less of familiarity, it's more of our own reflection of ourself than familiarity. I don't know, Lilananda Prabhuji might add something if I'm saying something.
No, it's a good conversation. It's a good conversation. It can go on forever. It's such a topic, but an analogy that you can keep to that is, sometimes when foreign citizens live in our country, right? Say, for example, Americans are living in our country, they also walk among us, but the government doesn't see them and us alike. Government feels more responsible for them to be treated nicely, because the image of the country will get disturbed, right? If Americans are killed or anybody, something bad happens to them in our country, it will go into the newspapers. I'm just giving an analogy that the same way, we should also remember that the devotees in our life are not ordinary people like all of us around us. They're Krishna's people. They're Krishna's people, and if they're mistreated, Lord Krishna is going to immediately react on it. He's not going to wait. And Lord Krishna is sitting in their hearts. Lord Krishna is watching their life. Lord Krishna is taking care of their lives. So we should be very careful when we are dealing with devotees. Careful doesn't mean you should be fearful.
Exactly.
Careful doesn't mean you should not be jovial. Careful doesn't mean we should not be friendly. Careful should be, we should not do anything which will decrease their faith on their own devotion. We should not create any obstacle for them in their Krishna conscious journey, right? Otherwise, Vaishnavas are very, very merciful. They never even tell us that they are hurt, right? They think that it's Krishna's hand, so something happened. That's the most difficult part. No Vaishnava will give a feedback also. But we should be we should look at actually the best thing, we should look at how our seniors are treating their seniors, right? And we should try to behave in the similar line. Don't try to copy them, follow their footsteps, right? And this journey is, but not to worry. Prabhupada has pardoned so many. Prabhupada's disciples are pardoning even more. as the disciplinic succession is coming down, the mercy is only increasing. The amount of tolerance is only increasing. The accommodative aspect is also increasing. ISKCON as an organization and as an institution, as a spiritual organization is becoming more and more adaptable, accepting everyone to come in and become a better person. So we as a community, as our satsang, should also accept, adapt, and accept, adapt, and actually take a very non-serious situation about small things, and we should keep pardoning, and we should, but we should not take things for granted, because even a junior person, person coming first time to the satsang, if he feels offended, that's equal to a Vaishnava, because remember that who brought him to that satsang? Krishna brought him to that satsang, and you said something that he left, right? So it is so much, we should never forget Krishna's presence in satsang. We should never forget that. And that's why Prabhupada always says, never forget Krishna, always remember Krishna, because he is everywhere. There is nothing in our lives that we'll do which will go out of Krishna's attention. Krishna is very much knowing everything inside and outside us. So yes, it's a very instructive story and something that we should dwell on. And there are, if you go to ISKCON Desire Tree, on this chapter and these conversations, there are thousands of lectures, thousands. And sannyasis, great prabhus, and they all have so much so to share with their own personal realizations, what they can learn from Chitraketu Maharaj's episode, right through becoming Vritarasura and finally getting delivered. And every little character, that Lord Krishna brings in, including Dadichi, including Indra, including, Lord Shiva, Mother Parvati, including Chitraketu Maharaj's wives, Narad Muni, Angira Muni, everybody has so many things to. Angira Muni says, don't ask for a son because you don't have it in your quota. But he says, no, I want it. He says, he'll bring misery to you. He'll bring dukkha. He said, no, but still I'll want it. See, again, one more. So you can keep going in the story, and at every point, there is so many things to learn. So if our senior says no, you should listen. If you don't listen, you get a reaction to that. But anyway, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Prabhu.
Sorry, time is a factor.
Yes, Prabhu. Yes, Prabhu. We have busy day waiting.
Very well.
Yes, right? Yes, like Hare Krishna. Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, thank you very much, Prabhuji. Dandavat pranam. Anchakalptarabhyasya kripasindabhyasya patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha.
Prabhuji and Mataji, please come by 1:30. Please don't delay. Like last time, you can't come like after the exam starts. Please come before.
Like the board exam. 15 minutes late, you're not allowed.
Yeah. Dandavat pranam.